pawn shop. So it's all I've ever done. I enjoy doing it. So I mean, there's just a lot of things going on there.
He's the biggest fraudster of the century. This shocking accusation sent shockwaves through the courtroom as a witness bluntly called out Rick Harrison during a recent trial. Fans of the famous reality TV show Pawn Stars around the world were stunned when they learned that Rick Harrison, the man with sharp business acumen and vast knowledge of countless antique items, had been sentenced to life in prison. What happened to the man who seemed to have the upper hand in every deal? Is there a dark secret lurking behind that calm and knowledgeable exterior? Now at the peak of his television career, Rick's life has taken an unexpected, dark, and unpredictable turn. Rumors about his involvement in scams and the trade of stolen antiques have spread like wildfire. Join us in this video to explore the full journey of a pawn star, from fame to legal turmoil. Rick Harrison's journey to becoming the Pawn Stars kingpin. Richard Kevin Harrison, better known as Rick Harrison from the hit reality TV show Pawn Stars, became famous not just on screen but also for his colorful real-life stories that captivated the media. The Harrison family's gold and silver pawn shop, located at 713 South Las Vegas Boulevard, became the central backdrop for Pawn Stars since July 2009. Who would have guessed that a regular pawn shop could turn into one of the most watched programs on the History Channel, revealing the fascinating and sometimes bizarre world of pawnbroking? Richard Kevin Harrison, born on March 22, 1965, in Lexington, North Carolina, is a successful businessman and a familiar face on American television. When he was just 2 years old, his family moved to San Diego, California, where he spent most of his childhood. Few know that young Rick had to deal with epilepsy from the age of 8, a condition that led him to spend much of his time reading. This, in turn, helped him build an impressive wealth of historical knowledge, an essential factor in his later career. But could the struggles of his past have any connection to his current legal troubles? Rick's childhood wasn't exactly peaceful. His epilepsy often forced him to miss school, and he eventually dropped out in his sophomore year of high school. However, the interruption to his formal education did not quench his thirst for knowledge and ambition for success. Instead, Rick self-educated by devouring books on a wide range of subjects, particularly history and business. This self-taught method gave him an extensive knowledge base, something that viewers clearly saw in his impressive appearances on Pawn Stars. So what could have driven such a curious and self-reliant man like Rick to get tangled in legal issues? In his teenage years, Rick began working with his father on various business ventures. It was here that he developed a keen eye, an ability to assess the value and authenticity of items, a priceless skill for his future career. At the age of 17, Rick's girlfriend became pregnant, and they got married. The young couple had 2 sons, Corey and Adam, before divorcing after 8 years of marriage. In 1981, Rick's family moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, where his father Richard Benjamin Harrison opened a coin and gold shop. Did the ups and downs of his personal life influence Rick's decisions and actions later on? What started as a small coin shop soon evolved into the world-renowned gold and silver pawn shop by 1989, which later became the main setting for Pawn Stars. The shift from a coin shop to a pawn shop was a strategic decision, as the Harrison family saw a higher profit potential in this new venture. The early years were filled with challenges as Rick and his father worked tirelessly to establish their reputation in Las Vegas. Rick often faced difficult customers and occasionally dangerous situations. But could these hardships in building their career have led to some of the poor choices made later? By the early 2000s, Rick had become a well-known figure in Las Vegas, thanks to his expertise in various types of collectibles and historical items. His pawn shop earned a reputation as a place where one could find unique and valuable items, attracting both locals and tourists. Realizing the entertainment potential of his business, Rick. But what happened next? What could have caused such a successful and influential man like Rick Harrison to face a life sentence? Let's stay tuned for more updates to uncover this mystery. But did Rick stop at just running a successful pawn shop? No. In the mind of this ambitious man, a bold idea emerged to turn the everyday activities in his shop into an exciting reality TV show. What inspired Rick to pursue this idea so relentlessly? Did he see the entertainment and educational potential in the unique transactions and historical stories behind every item? After many years of knocking on TV station doors and facing countless rejections, Rick's persistence finally paid off. In 2009, a deal was struck with History Channel, marking a new chapter in his career. Could Rick have known that this decision would change his life, and his family's life, forever? Soon, Pawn Stars aired, taking viewers behind the scenes with Rick, his son Corey Big Hoss Harrison, his respected father Richard the Old Man Harrison, and their close friend Austin Chumley Russell as they went about their daily activities at the gold and silver pawn shop. The show unveiled the process of appraising, buying, and selling valuable items and sometimes bizarre collectibles. The success of the show was almost immediate, catapulting Rick from a local pawn shop owner to a television star known by millions. His straightforward catchphrases, confident way of speaking, and vast historical knowledge won over audiences. Rick's signature line, "The best I can do is," became iconic whenever he negotiated with customers trying to sell their treasures. One key aspect that set Pawn Stars apart from other reality TV shows was the educational element that Rick always emphasized. Each episode offered fascinating historical insights about the items brought into the shop, with Rick often providing background stories and deep details showcasing his vast knowledge. Under Rick's leadership, the pawn shop expanded, attracting tourists from around the world hoping to see the stars of the show, or even appear in an episode. Episode sales skyrocketed and Rick leveraged his newfound fame by writing books, attending live events, and even opening a successful restaurant called Rick's Rollin' Smoke Barbecue and Tavern. The fame of Pawn Stars elevated Rick to new heights with numerous appearances on talk shows, features in magazines, and becoming a sought-after speaker at business events. His stories of overcoming adversity resonated with many Americans, and his straightforward business advice earned him respect not only in entertainment but also in the business world. But what truly made Rick Harrison a name in the world of antiques and collectibles? Throughout his career, Rick demonstrated an incredible ability to spot hidden value in places where others might easily overlook. Could this be a natural talent or the result of continuous learning and experience? Was it his sharp eye and deep knowledge that made him successful on Pawn Stars? Pawn Stars fans have witnessed Rick appraising a variety of items, from valuable historical documents to classic cars, ancient artifacts to modern collectibles. His expertise seemed limitless, though he often sought the help of specialists when faced with items beyond his knowledge. Could this be a testament to the wisdom of a businessman who understands his own limitations? We've seen Rick buy and sell countless items on the show, with many successful deals alongside a few that didn't go as expected. Could it be his deep understanding of watches, guns, and U.S. historical artifacts that brought him massive profits? One of Rick's most famous deals was the 2001 Super Bowl ring from the New England Patriots, which he bought for $2,600 and later had it appraised at a much higher value. Could this be a lucky bargain or the result of his sharp instincts and knowledge of the value of collectible sports memorabilia? Another notable acquisition was a collection of Spanish gold doubloons salvaged from a 1715 shipwreck, showcasing his interest in both history and precious metals. But could these successes be all we know about Rick's life? Behind these successes and joyful moments, Rick Harrison has also experienced an immense loss. What tragedies has he faced, and how have they affected him? Behind the bright lights and seemingly cheerful conversations on TV, Rick Harrison's private life has been filled with ups and downs, as well as considerable losses. His life has not only been about rare antiques and multi-million-dollar deals but also marked by sorrowful milestones, broken relationships, and wounds that refuse to heal. 3 failed marriages have passed through Rick's life, and each divorce has likely left scars in his soul. It's not hard to imagine the emotional toll and sense of abandonment Rick must have felt when relationships he thought were rock solid fell apart. Could each breakup have stolen a part of his faith, hope, and family happiness? Rick's first marriage to Kim Harrison, which began in 1982, ended just 3 short years later. This was a personal tragedy that marked Rick's first encounter with family life unraveling. The marriage brought him 2 sons, Corey and Adam, but its swift dissolution forced Rick to balance fatherhood with his personal ambitions. This tragedy made Rick more cautious in future relationships and further solidified his resolve to build a stable career to provide for his children. His father Richard served as a pillar during this time, helping Rick navigate through the difficulties with practical advice and support in his business. But the heartaches didn't end there. Rick went on to marry Tracy Harrison in 1986, and their 25-year-long union seemed to have created a strong foundation, especially with the birth of their son Jake. However, this marriage too eventually ended in divorce in 2011. This was a major shock, as the length of time they had spent together had created a seemingly solid foundation. The breakdown of this marriage forced Rick to face feelings of personal failure and self-doubt regarding his ability to maintain a happy family. After the divorce, he became more private about his personal life, focusing more on his work at the pawn shop and on the Pawn Stars show. His father Richard continued to be a key figure not only in his business but also as an emotional anchor, helping Rick through his grief and reinforcing his sense of responsibility toward his family. Rick's third marriage to Deanna began in 2013 and was initially seen as an opportunity for him to find happiness again after the previous heartbreaks. However, by 2021, this marriage also ended in divorce, marking the third time Rick had to face the painful reality of failed relationships. The repeated failures in his personal life made him skeptical of love and increasingly withdrawn, keeping his personal life away from public attention. But Rick's tragedies don't stop there. One of the greatest losses he faced was the passing of his father, Richard Benjamin Harrison Jr., on June 25, 2018. For Rick, his father was not just a colleague on Pawn Stars but a mentor and guiding figure in both life and business. The old man was an indispensable part of the gold and silver pawn shop, where Rick learned patience, business savvy, and the importance of family. His father's death left a significant emotional void, forcing Rick to confront loneliness and the greater responsibility of maintaining the legacy that he and his father had built together. From that point on, Rick became quieter but more determined to preserve the shop's name and the show more seriously. Rick has openly discussed his struggle with depression, particularly after his father's death in 2018. Losing his beloved father pushed him into a mental slump, exacerbating the pressures from both work and life. This tragedy made Rick more introspective, but it also forged him into a resilient individual determined to overcome adversity. His father Richard remained Rick's biggest inspiration, with his values of strength and responsibility helping Rick stand firm and continue running Pawn Stars and the pawn shop. It seemed as though the pain would stop there, yet immediately after that, the greatest sorrow in Rick's life came with the death of his son Adam. The loss of a child, especially one caused by a drug overdose, is an irreplaceable sorrow. Rick's tearful reflections on the regret and the endless what-ifs that haunted him show the profound pain he carries. Can time heal this deep wound? In a tearful interview, the creator of Pawn Stars shared the irreplaceable loss of his 39-year-old son. "I think about him every day," Rick Harrison shared with tears in his father's memory. Rick sees his son Adam struggling through life's hardships. Rick didn't hide the fact that Adam had battled drug addiction since he was in his 20s. He had sent his son to rehab multiple times, hoping he would find the right path. Yet the vicious cycle of addiction clung to Adam, leaving Rick heartbroken. Could there have been something Rick missed, another decision he should have made to prevent this tragedy? Rick agonizes over whether he could have done things differently. "I think I did everything right, but you just sit in your head thinking, what if I had done this? What if I had done that?" You have hundreds of things running through your mind. Those heart-wrenching, self-questioning words reveal the heavy burden Rick carried. The tragedy struck when Adam overdosed on the deadly drug fentanyl, a synthetic opioid that claimed his life. Can anyone fathom the excruciating pain a father feels when losing his beloved child? Adam Harrison was found unresponsive at his hotel in Las Vegas where he was living and was later declared deceased. A police investigation confirmed that the cause of death was a fentanyl and methamphetamine overdose. The medical examiner's office confirmed it was a tragic accident. Previously, Rick had spoken out about the fentanyl crisis in America, urging people to be more aware of its dangers. Could Adam's death serve as a painful wake-up call for society about this epidemic? In a conversation with Graham Bensinger, Rick Harrison bitterly remarked that as a parent of a child struggling with drug addiction, you try to treat them badly, but you never see an overdose coming. This poignant statement reveals the helplessness and agony of parents with children addicted to drugs. Despite his best effort, Rick never anticipated that the worst tragedy would strike his family. Is this a pain that no words can fully express? However, the storm did not stop there. It continued to rage as Rick Harrison found himself involved in a major lawsuit with the final verdict condemning him to life imprisonment. So why was Rick Harrison considered the greatest fraudster of the century? Dark secrets, fraud, tax evasion, and selling fake antiques. Sadly, alongside his successes, Rick also faced some rather unpleasant experiences, most of which stem from his own decisions. In 2022, Rick Harrison had to contend with a number of legal disputes related to the gold and silver pawn shop. One noteworthy case occurred in 2012 when a customer named Wayne F. Jeffries sued Rick and the shop for allegedly selling a stolen piece of jewelry. Jeff claimed he bought a diamond ring from the store only to later find out it was part of a theft and was seized by the police. He sought compensation for the amount he paid, along with other damages totaling around $40,000. Rick countered that his store strictly adhered to pawn shop regulations, including checking merchandise with authorities before selling it. He argued that the shop could not have known the item was stolen unless it was flagged in the police database. After a period of litigation, the court ruled in Rick's favor, determining that gold and silver pawn shop had not intentionally violated the law. Jeff did not receive compensation and the lawsuit ended without causing significant financial loss to Rick. However, matters escalated in 2023 when Rick's legal troubles took a dramatic turn. Federal agents unexpectedly raided his home in Las Vegas. What led to this shocking raid? Initially, the public was unaware of the nature of the investigation, sparking countless rumors online. Was there a dark secret slowly being revealed? The raid sent shockwaves through fans and even those close to Rick. FBI agents, along with investigators and IRS representatives from the Cultural Heritage Protection Department, conducted a raid at Rick's home and the famous gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas. When the FBI agents and law enforcement arrived at the pawn shop, the event immediately caused a media stir. Staff members and customers present at the time were temporarily detained and asked to provide information. Employees at Gold and Silver Pawn Shop claimed they were unaware of any transactions Rick may have made, and this event was a huge shock to them all. Meanwhile, the FBI agents seized numerous important items including computers, accounting documents, and a series of items from the inventory which they believed might be linked to stolen antiques from museums and private collections. Among the seized items were several antiques that experts identified as belonging to famous museums and private collections. These included a collection of Mayan artifacts believed to have been stolen from a renowned museum in Mexico. Documents showed that these artifacts had been traded through various shady intermediaries. Rick's house also contained an 18th-century painting that was once owned by a museum in Paris but was stolen in a major heist in 2003. The agents also found numerous documents, contracts, and transactions showing the trade of stolen historical items, including several statues that had gone missing from private collections. According to secret sources from the IRS, there were suspicions that Harrison had evaded taxes by underreporting his actual income and concealing earnings from the sale of antiques and other transactions through intermediary channels. This led to accusations of tax evasion amounting to millions of dollars. The investigation began when the IRS noticed several irregularities in Gold and Silver Pawn Shop's financial records. Tax experts indicated that Rick's shop had several large transactions that were not fully reported in financial statements, and it appeared these earnings had been funneled through subsidiary companies or anonymous accounts to avoid taxation. Additionally, there were allegations that Rick Harrison had engaged in illegal transactions with foreign partners and failed to properly report the income generated from international deals. Investigators from the IRS also revealed that some of these transactions were concealed as fake fees or discounts to reduce his tax liabilities. The investigation continued to lead to a series of serious charges against Rick Harrison, including fraud, tax evasion, and intentionally purchasing stolen historical items through intermediaries. The accusations suggested that he had deliberately participated in the illegal trade of stolen artifacts from museums and private collections. collections. This severely damaged his public image as fans and investors began to question the ethics and legality of the transactions at his pawn shop. Another key witness in Rick Harrison's lawsuit was David Green, a well-known antique collector with a strong voice in the community of antique lovers and collectors. David Green had a noteworthy encounter with Rick Harrison which, according to him, was one of the experiences that made him doubt the legality of the transactions taking place at Gold and Silver Pawn Shop. According to David's testimony, he visited Rick Harrison's shop in late 2020 with the intention of selling a highly rare antique, a bronze mirror from the Qing dynasty dating back over 300 years. This was an extremely rare and valuable item passed down through his family for generations. Upon arriving at Rick's shop, David trusted that he was dealing with someone who truly appreciated antiques, someone knowledgeable and respectful of the historical value of items like the bronze mirror he possessed. At that time I thought I was just dealing with an antique lover, someone who understood historical artifacts and could help me find the right buyer for this item. Rick always showed enthusiasm and knowledge about antiques, and I really felt confident when I decided to sell the mirror to his shop, David shared in his testimony. However, after the mirror was transferred and Rick paid him a reasonable amount of money, David began to notice some strange things in the weeks that followed. He had the chance to speak with colleagues in the antique collecting community and discovered that his bronze mirror had appeared at a major auction held at a famous museum in New York. The surprising thing was that the mirror had been resold for a very high price, but its origin was completely unclear. David then conducted further investigations and contacted experts in the antique collecting industry. Some of his friends in the field confirmed that the mirror might have been resold through opaque channels or even stolen from private collections before making its way to Rick Harrison. After that incident, I began to suspect that many items in Rick's shop might not have legitimate origins, David expressed in his testimony. David Green stated that this incident led him to question the transactions he had made at Gold and Silver Pawn Shop. While selling his antique, he never suspected it could have a shady origin, but after discovering that his item had been resold with no clear information about its provenance, he felt deceived and had reason to doubt that other items in the shop might also have unclear histories. Did Rick really participate in these shady activities? The investigation seemed to have been triggered by suspicious transactions flagged by financial institutions and complaints from former business partners. Shortly after the raid, the History Channel suspended production of Pawn Stars. Could this be the end of Rick's television career? His lawyer David Marshall, a renowned attorney in Las Vegas, reassured the public that Rick had always operated his business with care and adhered to all current laws. Not long after the raid, Rick was arrested, but he was released the next day and had to appear in court a few days later. Is there a completely different person behind the image of the straightforward, knowledgeable businessman? David Marshall, his lawyer, once again emphasized that Rick vehemently denied all accusations and would fight to the fullest in court. But would this denial be enough to stand against the evidence collected by investigators? The legal battle lasted nearly a year, with Rick continuously asserting his innocence. However, over time, the mounting evidence against him, along with unfavorable testimonies from former associates, made his position weaker than ever. The prosecution presented encrypted financial records, suspicious messages, and testimonies from former employees who claimed that Rick had instructed them to alter documents for high-value items. They also provided evidence showing that he had set up offshore accounts to hide profits from special high-value transactions. One piece of evidence considered particularly damning was a series of text messages between Rick and an unidentified supplier discussing how to clean up the provenance of an 18th-century document that was allegedly stolen from a university. Could this be the undeniable proof of Rick's involvement in the illegal trade of antiques? In another exchange, Rick was allegedly discussing how to structure a transaction to avoid triggering reporting requirements for large cash transactions. Could these messages reveal a sophisticated method of operating to evade legal scrutiny? Final life sentence. The courtroom was enveloped in a suffocating silence, as if every sound around had been cut off, when the judge was preparing to deliver the sentence. All eyes were fixed on Rick Harrison, who had tried to maintain his composure throughout the trial. Yet no one could ignore the tension in his eyes. Sitting behind him, his son Corey appeared pale, his facial expression clearly reflecting shock and worry. Meanwhile, Chum Lee, who had always been Rick's close friend, partner, and student, could not hide his emotions. He placed his head in his hands, his eyes filled with disappointment and sorrow. The tension in the courtroom was palpable, for today was not just any trial, it was a confrontation with fate. As the judge read the sentence, a heavy silence filled the room. Defendant, for your involvement in the trade of stolen antiques and serious financial fraud, the court sentences you to life imprisonment, the judge declared, making the air in the room even more still. This was a shocking verdict, not only for Rick but also for many legal experts, a sentence that seemed too harsh for financial crimes. Yet the judge emphasized that it reflected not only financial wrongdoings but also a punishment for the irreplaceable damage done to humanity's cultural and historical heritage. Mr. Harrison introduced himself to the public as a protector of history, someone who valued the story behind ancient artifacts. But in reality, he systematically participated in the plundering and destruction of irreplaceable cultural heritage for personal gain, the judge stated in a stern tone. The court cannot overlook the severity of such actions. After the sentence was delivered, Rick's legal team immediately filed an appeal, arguing that the sentence was too severe and violated the defendant's rights, especially since the charges were nonviolent. They requested that Rick be granted bail while awaiting the appeal result. However, in a subsequent shock, the court denied his bail request. Rick being handcuffed and led away quickly became the focus of the media, and soon that image spread like wildfire on social media, sparking a strong wave of controversy. Could this be the end of all his hopes? Would justice truly shine, or would Rick Harrison become a victim of a legal system he once thought he could control? The public and media reaction to the verdict sparked a deep division. A segment of Rick's fans believed he did not deserve such a sentence, viewing it as a series of financial mistakes made in a business environment filled with traps. They saw him as someone who had dedicated his life to the pawn and antique industry, with a deep love for history. On the other hand, another group argued that the sentence was justified, as Rick's actions not only tarnished his personal reputation but also caused immense harm to the global cultural heritage. The History Channel, where Pawn Stars had created a sensation, acted swiftly after the verdict was delivered. The network officially distanced itself from Rick Harrison, canceling the show and removing all reruns from its broadcast schedule immediately. In an official statement, the channel expressed profound disappointment in Rick's actions and reaffirmed its commitment to protecting historical artifacts and cultural heritage. This was a difficult yet necessary decision to safeguard the network's reputation. Pawn Stars had become an integral part of television history, but its absence would leave a considerable void not easily filled. The question remains, what will replace this iconic show on the History Channel? Despite being embroiled in numerous legal troubles, Rick Harrison's influence on the reality TV industry and the pawn business cannot be denied. Before facing these legal issues, he had successfully built a vast business empire extending far beyond the gold and silver pawn shop. He had expanded into restaurants and bars in Las Vegas, with plans to further develop into other cities. However, can these business ventures continue to thrive without Rick's leadership? Currently, the gold and silver pawn shop is managed by his son Corey, yet this responsibility is far from easy. In an emotional interview a few months after his father's sentencing, Corey shared the difficulties of maintaining and growing the family business. We've implemented strict measures to verify the provenance of every item we purchase. What happened was wrong, and we are committed to being part of the solution, not part of the problem, Corey said, hoping these efforts would help restore trust from customers and the community. Chu Lee, who had always seen Rick as both a mentor and father figure, also spoke about the conflicting emotions he felt. I learned so much from Rick, he shared, but I also have to accept that there are aspects of him I never saw, or maybe I didn't want to see. Could the truth about Rick be something those closest to him still don't fully understand? The Harrison family, despite facing a storm of controversy, still felt the overwhelming love and support from fans around the world. The messages of encouragement from all of you have really been a lifeline for our father, Corey shared. He reads each letter and finds strength knowing that so many still believe in him. Could this affection be enough to help Rick through his darkest days? The family also held prayer sessions outside the shop, where loyal fans gathered to show their solidarity. Could these gestures make a significant difference in such a challenging time? The case of Rick Harrison is still ongoing, and every development continues to captivate the public. The influence of Pawn Stars and the attention from its audience only add layers of complexity and mystery to this story. What will the outcome be? Will Rick Harrison be able to weather this legal storm? In the meantime, it is certain that the support of his fans will be a great source of encouragement for him. If you are a true fan of Pawn Stars, consider sending positive thoughts and words of encouragement to Rick as a way of honoring what he has contributed to television over the years. And don't forget, if you enjoy this video, hit like, turn on notifications, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with the latest information.